April 17, 2017 Planning Commission meeting to order. If you'd please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And could I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Bradley?
Present.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
Present.
Commissioner Harper Pedersen?
Present.
Vice Chair Silverman?
Present.
Chair Bergman?
Present. Next item on the agenda, next item on the agenda is public comment. Public comment is limited to items that are not on the agenda. The Commission may briefly respond to statements made or questions posed as allowed by the Brown Act. However, the Commission's general policy is to refer items to staff for attention or have a matter placed on a future Commission agenda for a more comprehensive action or report. Is there anyone wishing to speak on an item that isn't on the posted agenda? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move to the next item, which is the approval of the minutes. So is there any comments or changes to the April 3rd proposed minutes?
I have no changes.
I have no changes.
Move approval.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bradley?
Yes.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
Yes.
Commissioner Harper Pedersen?
Yes.
Vice Chair Silverman?
Yes.
Chair Bergman?
Yes. The next item on the agenda is the public hearing. And the procedure for the public hearing are that the staff will present a report on the history, physical features, etc. on the application, followed with the staff's recommendations. The applicant will make a presentation. Thereafter, interested members of the community may speak on the proposal. When all interested parties have had an opportunity to be heard, the hearing will be closed and no further discussion from the floor can be held. The Commission will then consider the evidence and make its recommendations. If you challenge a public hearing item in court, you may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised at the public hearing described in this notice, the public notice, or in written correspondence delivered to the city at or prior to the public hearing. Speakers should fill out a speaker form found by the door and hand it to the recording secretary prior to addressing the Commission. They're back there if you're interested. The speaker should come up to the microphone to speak since the meeting is being recorded. This will assist staff in preparing the minutes. First item on the agenda is 700 Crestview Drive, APN 049-400-010. Consideration of a conditional use permit application for the installation of a dual Omni antenna, a 2-foot diameter microwave dish, concrete pad, outdoor cabinet, wiring, and meter panel, and associated trenching for backhaul to PG&E's San Carlos Service Center and on an existing 60-foot monopole at 700 Crestview Drive. And do we have a presentation?
We do, thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Andrea Martisich, and I'll be presenting this item on behalf of Joe Lewis. As you mentioned, PG&E is requesting approval of a conditional use permit to allow the installation of the dual Omni antenna and the microwave dish, as well as associated equipment, including the outdoor cabinet, meter panel, and associated wiring. This is an aerial view of the site. The parcel is zoned RS3, single-family residential, low density. It's owned by Cal Water Service, and as you can see, it's located on the corner of Los Vientos Way, Crestview Drive, and Quail Lane. There's an existing water tank on site, as well as the existing 60-foot tall monopole, which is the pole that they're proposing to put the new antennas on. There's also an equipment shelter, pump building, and there's another lattice tower structure that has several cell antennas on site. That is not the tower under consideration this evening. And a permit has also been issued for a new water tank at this location. The monopole is currently used for telecommunications by Cal Water Service. If this application is approved, once the antennas are installed, it would allow PG&E to create a radio network for internal wireless communication, specifically helping communications with the field crews. Only employees and contractors associated with PG&E would have access to that network. So this is the site plan of 700 Crestview. The monopole, existing monopole, is in this area, and that is where they're proposing to add the two antennas. And then you can see in the red the location of the new cabinet and meter panel, and the meter panel is attached to the existing Cal Water box. This is an elevation of the proposed antennas. Because the proposed facility is located within a residential district and does conform with the code, a conditional use permit is required, so that is the reason they're in front of you this evening. There's no additional parking required for this proposal. On the elevation, you can see several antennas. The 3 antennas at the top are Cal Water and already installed. The 2 proposed antennas are this 2-foot diameter dish antenna as well as a 7.5-inch Omni antenna. And then I included a picture of the existing pole. So this is what the pole looks like now. And then you can see the existing tower structure behind the trees, but it is this monopole that we're speaking of this evening. The antennas will be mounted at a height that is lower than the existing structure. So the pole is 60 feet. The antennas will be mounted at about between 50 and 53 feet and lower than the existing antennas from Cal Water. A condition of approval has also been added that the antennas and equipment be painted to match what is there, the surrounding equipment. The applicant completed an RF study for exposure to electromagnetic rays. At both the ground level and the nearby residences, the RF emissions are less than what is allowable. In both instances, the exposure is less than 1% of what is allowed for the public measurement. And as you'll recall, the public measurement is much more conservative than an occupational standard. So there's a much lower threshold that can be exceeded. So both are less than 1%. No additional noise is anticipated as part of this. PG&E has added several of these at other locations, and there's been no impact to noise levels as a result of those installations. This afternoon, staff received a letter via email, a copy of which has been put at the dais, from a neighbor who was concerned with the proposal in terms of the aesthetics as well as CEQA and the emissions. PG&E does have someone here who will be able to speak to the emissions aspect of it with the cabinet, and staff does believe it is exempt under the CEQA exemption 15301 existing facilities. So that letter is at the dais. I believe the gentleman also said he would be attending this evening, so he should be here to speak. PG&E also has a short PowerPoint available or to present, and I'm available for any questions. One last thing is I wanted to mention on the draft conditional use permit, condition number 24, there's a typo. It actually refers to an incorrect address. So if approved, we're recommending that the motion change this last condition to the correct address of 700 Crestview. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
I do have one. So this doesn't trigger the same FCC rules that we've become familiar with in regards to cell phone towers, since this is not a cell phone tower, correct?
So it is still subject to the same wireless standards for the FCC. So the emissions levels that they tested for are the same ones that you're used to for cell sites.
Okay, what about our discretion and approval and requiring more concealment? Do we have more discretion since this indeed is just an internal used Omni antenna and not a cell phone tower?
So it is similar to the cell regulations in that the proposal itself does not constitute a substantial change under the FCC rules, which basically means that it has to be approved because the change isn't substantial per their definition. Their definition talks about how much higher it could get and how much bigger the footprint can get before it becomes what they call a substantial change. So there is limitations in terms of what you can require for screening. Staff also believes because the antennas are lower than what's there now, and there is a condition that if any existing screening be removed, that it be replaced, that's sufficient for the proposal.
So we essentially have the same hand tying that we have every time we hear a cell phone tower, even though this is just an internal antenna.
Right. So for this one, because
Seem to have the same public benefit that a cell phone tower would.
right. So the code requires, because the code requires all new antennas to come through the commission, especially if they're within 600 feet of residential. Our code requires it to come, although the FCC code says if it's a substantial change, if it's not a substantial change, it has to be approved. So in this case, it is not a substantial change.
And I mean, I think you can see where I'm going, so I'll hold the rest of it for discussion, but it seems like an opportunity to add more concealment to what is a pretty ugly tower. And I'm looking for a way to do that. So, city lawyer, look it up. That's all the question I have for now.
I have a question. This is in response to Mr. Yasuda's number one regarding expansion, the expanded use. Could legal weigh in on? Could you really weigh in on that? What he's saying here is that because it's for profit, it's expanding the use. Is that? Could you give us an understanding of that, Mr. Yasuda? Do you have the letter?
Have you had a chance to look at the
Did
letter?
you read the letter?
We did. So,
No, I think looking for the attorneys,
oh,
right? The attorney.
Yeah, I want
Sorry, what did I
to go
say?
back to the question earlier. I think the Commission's question was whether the same FCC regulations applied to this application, and the answer is yes. Even though PG&E is not a traditional wireless carrier or a wireless provider, this is an existing wireless facility. So the answer is yes, the same
Okay.
regulations will apply
Okay.
here.
I just wanted to clarify that one point because it was a little bit different than what we usually talk about. We're usually talking about the physical characteristics, and this was talking about the actual use. I just wanted that clarity. So thank you. Any other questions?
Not at the moment.
No?
I'll have more for the applicant.
Yeah, does the applicant want to come up and speak?
Good evening, Honorable Commissioners. My name is Chris Vars, Principal Land Planner with Pacific Gas and Electric Company. And on behalf of PG&E, I want to thank you for this opportunity to be here tonight. And secondly, most importantly, I want to express a sincere thanks to the professionalism and great work that we receive in working with your staff. They've been fantastic. And it's great to be here tonight. There's been a lot of work put into this project to get it to this point. Really, this project's about three things. One, it's about enabling PG&E to be able to provide excellent customer service to its customers here in San Carlos. Secondly, it's about public safety, being able to respond to emergencies and significant events in a very timely and effective manner. And thirdly, it's about doing those two things in a way that has the least environmental impact to the environment and to the community. Oh, okay. So this figure was in your staff report, and this provides a parcel map with the site and then a radius of 300 feet. PG&E did mail out letters to all residents within 500 feet of the project site to let them know about this project and the importance. And I just thought I'd highlight it here in the slide deck. It's a small project, very small. It's an existing site. It's not like we're putting a new tower or set of equipment on a hillside that hasn't been received a cell tower before. The idea was, what is our coverage requirements? Where are there gaps? And how can we fulfill those gaps to make sure that when our crew goes out in the field to respond to a customer need or to respond to a significant event, whether it's a weather-related issue, how can we get our field crew out there in a quick way and enable them to communicate with each other and with our San Carlos Service Center in an effective way? So we did an exhaustive analysis to look at our coverage and where we needed to fill the gaps and where we could put this equipment in a way that already utilizes an existing tower so that we're not building a new tower, we're not grading on a new hillside, we're just taking an existing monopole tower, adding some small equipment at approximately a 50-foot elevation creating a small little concrete pad and splice box and doing a very minor amount of earthwork to provide excellent customer service, to be able to respond to emergencies and do it in a way that has very minimal impact to the environment and community. You saw this graphic here, which shows the monopole and the existing equipment and the proposed equipment. Again, very small. This figure shows two things. The figure on the left, you can see in green, that's where we're currently providing coverage for our field crew. And then there's the darker areas in kind of that blackish gray, and those are where we have the gaps in this area, and that's where we want to provide that coverage. So if you look to the figure on the right, you see the green, but then you see the darker green, and that's how we fill in those gaps or those holes with this small amount of equipment. So again, just providing coverage for our field crew. We did do a radio frequency emissions analysis pursuant to the Federal Communication Commission requirements, and the potential maximum exposure limit is very small, less than 1% of the applicable FCC exposure limit requirements. And the cumulative effect at ground level, looking at the existing equipment and the additional equipment, is still less than 1%. So again, very small impact, really none whatsoever. And it provides a community benefit. It provides a benefit to us all in being able to provide excellent customer service, being able to respond to emergencies and provide public safety, and do so in a way that has minimal impact to the environment. We have several folks here tonight that if you have any specific questions about the radio frequency emissions analysis or some of the other technical requirements, hopefully we can answer your question. And again, I want to thank all of you for the opportunity to be here tonight and the excellent work and support that we receive from your staff.
Any questions?
I do. In the project description that PG&E submitted, you referenced 3 Northern California locations with identical equipment. I want to say it was Auburn, Monterey, and Twin Peaks in San Francisco. Those are the only 3 that have an Omni antenna?
Those are 3 that we've cited. We've been working on approximately 75 radio reliability projects. It's under this guise of our radio reliability program. There's been over 75 that we've been dealing with. For example, I've been involved with about 5 just in San Luis Obispo County, and we've had some projects where we've had to construct a new tower. We've had some projects where we've added equipment onto the existing tower, and then we had a third one where we added equipment onto existing tower, and that one we had to add a new building as well. The ones that we cited were really kind of the smallest ones, because we're not like we're building a big structure, or we have some where we're building like a 10-foot by 15-foot building. So we tried to pick ones that were very much analogous to what this project is itself. But we've got them all over our service territory.
And then how long have those been in place in those 3 locations?
I don't know. Edwin, do you have any idea?
Well, I started on the projects probably 6 years ago, so it's been an ongoing thing for at least the last 6 years.
Okay, so they've been in place for about 6 years. And then I just wanted to confirm what was said in the report, that there are no known problems with those 3 sites.
Had no problems with any of our sites. We put a lot of time and effort into these. They're a critical part of our infrastructure, and we haven't had any problems.
Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions for the applicant.
I'd like someone to respond to this point 3 in this letter, which is that you've done the RF studies, but there's no details provided on power cabinet or any transformers or other equipment that may be closed within. Could someone speak to why that is normally done or not done from a scientific standpoint?
Those pieces of equipment don't emit any radio frequencies. It's just the antennas and the microwave.
Okay. I just wanted to...
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions?
Not for the applicant.
Are you willing to install stuff to make it look like a fake pine tree?
I don't know if that's possible. It's an existing structure. PG&E doesn't own it, so it really, I don't know if we have the latitude to make those type of modifications to the structure. PG&E doesn't own the tower. We're just adding couple little pieces of
What if
equipment.
Cal Water gave you permission? Would you be willing to pay to do it?
I don't know if we're prepared to address that tonight. It's not part of the project or a condition of approval. There's really, from our perspective, there's not a nexus. There's really no significant visual impacts. It's an existing tower, just adding a couple pieces of equipment. So really, I don't think there's a nexus to impose that type of condition.
How many days do we have left?
This was submitted in December, so the 60 days have already passed.
Why do we keep doing this?
One of the reasons is that the commission might recall, and I know you get a lot of correspondence from us, and we've done a lot of, educational type presentations, and one of the presentations that you may recall was one given by another deputy city attorney, Kai Roos. I'm not sure.
Kai Reese, yes.
Reese. And it was a memo given to the Planning Commission and presented. And one of the where we're currently at right now is essentially we're trying to play catch up to the current FCC rule, the changes that have been made into the rules for these types of facilities, which gives cities, less, if you will, control over modification to wireless communication facilities. So right now we're trying to play catch up. Even though the FCC rules apply, in which case this could have been done, I believe at the staff level, correct me if I'm wrong, but the reason we're bringing it before the commission is because our code still requires that it come before the Planning Commission. So until we make those changes, we're going to keep following our own procedures, but with the caveat that those will soon be modified under our wireless ordinance amendment, so that these projects would be processed at staff level rather than at the planning commission level, in compliance with the new rules established by the FCC. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, that is exactly where we are in the process. If the commission has any other questions in terms of our ordinance amendment process, I'd be happy to answer them.
I have a question about the second water tower. I'm sorry, David, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm wondering if maybe the addition of the second water tank can trigger some more screenage for this antenna. All we're trying to do is get a really ugly antenna looking nicer. It's wholly inadequate, and the idea that they're just changing existing screening would be fine if the existing screening were adequate, but it's not.
The new tank has already been approved,
Okay.
and that underwent, I believe it was a mitigated neg deck, if I'm stand corrected, and there were screening requirements. And I believe, I don't know if PG, or actually no, I'm sorry, do we have any reps from Cal Water here? No, but that project, I believe, is underway, and they're required to maintain some landscaping that was there, and then add additional landscaping as part of that approval. I don't know if you provided any renderings with that new tank in mind, but that might have been interesting to see.
Yeah.
Does PG&E need any approvals in order to install the other equipment on the site that isn't antennas?
Such as the cabinets and all the equipment.
Anything other than the antenna?
Yeah, it's all part of this proposal.
Do we have to approve that?
Yes.
Related to the other, the new proposed and approved water tank, is it the same size as the existing? Do you know?
I believe it is.
Good.
I'm fairly certain it's close to the size of the existing tank that's currently on site.
It looks like the existing tank is 460,000 gallons and the new one's 400,000. So relatively the same size.
Let me ask my question a different way, make sure that I was clear. Do we have any discretion to deny the cabinets or any of the other facilities that are being built on that site with the exclusion of the antenna? Do we have any discretion?
It's an action not available to the Planning Commission tonight.
So, no, we have no discretion to deny.
No, not tonight.
All right.
I'd like to recommendation that if we have these things come up again, that not just the applicant, but whoever owns the pole be at the meetings. Because we ask the question of the applicant, well, we don't own it, and then we're stuck and we can't talk to anyone and we don't have time to do anything with it. Is that possible going forward?
Through the chair, I mean, I know the concern, one of the concerns from the commission, or at least what I'm hearing this evening, has to do with aesthetics and visual impacts. So I at least wanted staff to be able to point out some of the conditions that we're asking the applicant to do as part of this recommendation.
Okay, that's fine, but can you answer my question, and then we'll hear what they're doing. My question is in the future, you can come back to me at another time and let me know the answer, but in the future.
We can certainly request it.
Okay.
We can certainly make that clear to the applicant that that's the preference of this commission.
Okay, thank you. All right, and we're ready to look at the other stuff.
So just to outline some of the conditions regarding aesthetics, number 3, requiring the antenna support structures and any surfaces to be painted subdued, non-reflective colors that blend into surroundings, undergrounding and exterior wires and conduit, and then number 9, if the landscaping and trees that are existing are damaged, removed, or destroyed, either the permittee or property owner shall replace the trees and landscaping, and they shall be planted to screen the antenna support structures, antennas, equipment to the satisfaction of the director without unreasonably impeding the provision of wireless services.
So I don't mean to put you on the spot, and I can think of a way to do this without putting you on the spot, but I'm just going to try one other thing, if I could. The project description includes a new concrete pad and a new cabinet, right? That's what this says, a new concrete pad and a new cabinet. 47 U.S. Code 1455 says, notwithstanding Section 704 of the Telecommunications Act of 1996 or any other provision of law, state or local government may not deny and shall approve any eligible facility request for a modification of an existing wireless tower or base station that does not substantially change the physical dimensions of such tower or base station. So why isn't pouring a new concrete pad and putting a new cabinet in a substantial change to the physical dimensions of such tower or base station? And if you don't want to answer that question, that's okay. What I will do is I will add a condition to this that requires them to further screen the pole, subject to review by the city attorney. I mean, it's kind of up to you.
So to address your first question, the applicant's request does not amount to a substantial change as defined by Section 6409. There are very specific parameters as to what a specific project would constitute as substantial change based on the findings in the staff report. The request before the Planning Commission tonight is not one of them. It does not meet the definition.
The definition where?
Of a substantial change as
Located
defined in
where?
6409, Section 6409. This is a co-location application to an existing wireless facility. And I know this is an issue that we've all struggled with quite a bit. But like staff.
Section 6409 of what? 6409 section of what? Is this
Under
what code?
the FCC regulations.
Regulations 6409?
You want to have a seat until we talk this out. We'll call you back up.
Yeah, it's the Middle Class Tax Relief Act.
So 6409 is a FCC regulation?
Yeah, I'm trying to find it.
It's Section 6409, and then this is the full title of the code, the Middle Class Tax Relief and Job Creation Act of 2012. The FCC relied upon it to adopt its new regulations. And the specific subsection they're referring to is subsection A.
The internet is failing me. Well, we can continue. That's fine.
So through the chair, that section also talks specifically about what constitutes a substantial change, including I think a cell site can increase by like 20 feet in height before it's considered a substantial change, and the footprint can increase. I don't remember the exact number, but it's a pretty large amount before we can call it a substantial change.
Okay.
I mean, I'll let you guys do the lawyering, because I clearly have no place doing it. I mean, I see the public benefit, obviously, because PG&E is a utility, and this seems to improve service and safety, but it does seem not to be in the spirit of the ruling by the FCC to expedite cell phone tower approval. I mean, this is a private frequency to be used privately by PG&E. It doesn't seem to have the same public benefit that I think we've all kind of begrudgingly accepted from cell phone towers, in that we all get to use those frequencies. So can you explain to me how then this still comes under that ruling?
The FCC regulations apply pretty broadly. It does not make a distinction between private versus for-profit, or for-profit versus something a little bit more traditional that we're used to. The regulations simply don't make that distinction. It applies to any wireless facility, and in this case, any existing wireless facility.
All right. I mean, I obviously disagree, but who am I? Okay. Well, those are my questions for now. I guess maybe now would be a good time to hear from
The public.
Anything else? David?
No.
No? Okay. Any other questions for the applicant?
no.
Okay. All right. I'd like to open it up for the public. Does anyone from the public wish to speak on this? Please go ahead and come on up.
So my name is Ryan Yasuda. I'm the one that wrote the letter. I appreciate you guys reading it. I sent it about 4:30 this afternoon, so I wasn't sure if you were get a chance to take a look at it. So I live at 115 Los Vientos Way. I see the monopole every day. It is 10 feet outside of the fence line that borders the Cal Water property and my property. I'm actually on a flag lot, so my house is pushed in a little bit. So right on my way to the backyard, to the front yard, the monopole is right there, 10 feet from the fence line. The other thing I wanted to bring up was, there's no information in the application around what's going to be put in that cabinet. I'm concerned, since there's a pad being put there, trenching for power. I only can guess, but I'm not just concerned about the RF emissions. I'm also concerned about any EMF emissions that might come from power transformers or equipment. I don't know. There's not enough detail in the application for me to know what exactly is going to go into that cabinet that has a big pad being poured onto it, and that the location of that cabinet is again, it's very close to the fence line. It's close to the monopole, close to the fence line. So, one of the things I wanted to bring up was I'm not a lawyer, so I just took some of the things that were mentioned in the letter, the public notice letter, as well as PG&E's letter. They reference CQA section 15301 as stating that there's an existing facilities exemption, but when I read the context of the language, it says clearly that it's involving negligible or no expansion of use beyond that existing at the time of the lead agency's determination. I couldn't find any documentation when this monopole was first constructed that other entities, other for-profit entities such as PG&E would be utilizing the pole for its private usage. I'm concerned that this is in effect the for-profit usage of the monopole, where Cal Water is leasing space to third parties, and it doesn't provide I don't feel it provides that public benefit like a cell phone tower would. It's private communications. I looked at the map that PG&E submitted. It's not part of the independent report. It's somebody at PG&E colored in circles, black circles on the map. So I guess I'm sort of concerned that there was no independent study done on that. Second, I'm glad you guys talked about the sort of the aesthetics of the pole. You know, the existing pole is just unsightly, and unfortunately, I wasn't here. I've only been at the property for 9 months, so I wasn't here when the permit application for that went in. But adding 2 antennas, a microwave dish, a concrete pad, outdoor cabinet, wiring, meter panel, and trenching for power, I don't think that that constitutes negligible or no expansion of use beyond the initial time. So I really do think it should trigger an environmental review under my reading anyway of the CEQA documentation. I would like to see, I also want to say that this letter that PG&E sent out to the public, the statement is that this equipment will not be noticeable to those living nearby, and that's just factually false. I can see it every day. If you come out to my property on the flag lot, you can see it. You can see it from Los Vientos Way. You can see it from Crestview Drive. You can see it from Quail Lane. So I would ask that if you are considering to approve it, you know, at minimum, the city should require concealment with artificial branches, bark cladding, you know, what is commonly called, you know, sort of a monopine type pole in the cell phone tower industry. Finally, I think I pointed this out, while they provide a study around the RF unit itself, there are no details around the power cabinet, or what I suspect is the power cabinet, since there is some trenching going to the cabinet. Again, that proposed cabinet is extremely close to my property line, and I have 3 young daughters, and I'm concerned about the EMF exposure related to any power transformers contained in there, as well as to the RF. Again, I know they've done an independent study. They've paid a third-party contractor. I can't afford to get my own third-party contractor to come and look at it, but, you know, at best, the studies around RF are inconclusive, and I'm concerned because when I moved there, I knew the pole was there. I knew the existing equipment was there. I didn't know that Cal Water could, at will, lease that space out and continue to build and build and build. I'm just concerned about the impacts to the overall property, my health, and to the neighborhood in general. So I ask that you deny the application.
Thank you. And I just want to let you know there's probably not 5 people more sympathetic to what you're asking for. But as you've been listening to the discussion, there are very rigid federal regulations, and our hands are literally.
Well, I guess I would quote some of the things.
CEQA was California, but this is a federal regulation that we're bound to.
So if that's the case, then I mean, you know, sort of is what it is. I do know that you have a ordinance here, and you reference it here, section 18.30.60, and policy LU 817 says it requires the telecommunications and utility facilities to be sensitively placed, shielded, screened, or lessened from view to the greatest extent possible.
Yeah,
and,
I know.
You know, I would at least, you know, like to see that happen. And I'm also concerned, you know, as needs grow for more telecom services, what's to stop Cal Water from continuing to lease out space? I mean, this never was the intent of the initial granting of that application of the construction of that pole. So
the federal regulation actually has a trigger, and I think that our attorney could probably speak to or the staff could speak to what those triggers are. But there's actually very definitive triggers to what considers that considers a review or something that we actually could have some leverage in, and this doesn't meet that requirement. Could you speak to that briefly? I mean, you were just talking about the square footage and the expansion, and could you just review that?
So I just want to pull up what defines substantial change, which would warrant and allow the...
Another just what statute or... Because
there's an act called the Middle Class Tax Relief Act of 2012 that we were just referring to.
Okay.
The act contains section 6409, subsection A, which the FCC has adopted, and essentially preempted any state or local regulations when it comes to these type of requests by applicants. Section 6409 defines what constitutes substantial change, and I think staff is pulling that up right now.
It says there's a 4-prong test.
So if I could just briefly summarize without reading, or if you want to take some time to read through that, you're more than welcome to do that, but there's specific height and width increases that would amount to a substantial change that would allow a little bit more discretion for local agencies to regulate or to put conditions on, but this is just not one of them.
Okay. I guess it's hard for me to see, without reading the,
I will tell you that we've had a number of these come before us, and we've fought everyone. We've tried to fight several of them, and we just have not had.
Sure.
I mean, we don't want this any more than you do, but our hands are.
I guess I would say the difference I would see, at least in researching some of the previous things that have come before the council, is that this is not a cell tower.
Right.
It's a private radio service that's going to be, and so I'd like them to look at that if possible, because...
And I asked her that was the first question that I asked her was, what's the definition of, that's your number one, right, which is, what's the definition of the expanded, if that's an expanded scope, and our attorney has said that that this does not qualify for an expanded scope. And I think that PG&E would argue that they're providing public good and having their people be able to get out to where they need to get out to in time, because
they're always going to argue that, right, to get what they want. So I understand that. I guess I'm concerned that, the argument of public good is based on a map that they've provided, which isn't a third-party generated map. It was something they submitted just as part of the application. I'd also ask if they could tell me whether or not, because I know California has very strict environmental rules, and regardless of what federal statutes are in place, I would think that those rules would still apply with respect to environmental concerns.
Federal trumps state, in this case at least.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Did you want us?
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson and Commissioners. I'd like to just point out a few things if possible. One is in regards to the coverage. So we commissioned a detailed computer modeling analysis to identify what is our existing lack of coverage or the gaps, and what would it take to fulfill that gap. And it was, one, what's the existing gap? Two, how can we cover it? And thirdly, how can we do it in a way that minimizes the environmental effect? And so locating this minor amount of equipment on an existing site was identified as the least impactful alternative and was identified as the preferred approach. It's unfortunate that the site is near existing residences, but from my perspective and PG&E's perspective, it's looking at what is the incremental change from this project. And the incremental change really is negligible. All we're doing is adding a couple antennas to an existing monopole. Secondly,
I know.
Can I just...
Go ahead. Go
Okay,
ahead.
thank you. Secondly, we're installing a cabinet which is 3 feet tall by 6 feet and by 12. Or the cabinet itself is only 8 feet tall. The concrete pad is 3 feet by 6 feet and only 12 inches thick. So it's a minor, negligible change. It doesn't result in any significant visual impacts. It's a very minor incremental change, providing a community benefit, providing safety benefit, and doing it in a way with minimal impact on the environment. So I appreciate it, and I'm sorry if I cut you
That's
off.
okay. I understand. No,
Okay.
good. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
May I ask you a question since you're up? Can you speak to Mr. Yasuda's concern about what is going into the cabinet?
Yeah, thank you. I missed that. I wrote it down. Two things. One is that there's going to be a battery backup system, so if the power goes out for some reason, that we still have a way to be able to power our equipment. Secondly is that we'll have radio repeater equipment that just communicates with the antenna on the pole. So it's just a way to allow communication between the cabinet and the pole. They don't emit or broadcast any EMF, and the radio frequency emissions analysis looked at what is the EMF. The overall power supply for the cabinet is only 60 amp, which is about 1/3 of a typical house, which usually has about 200 amp service. So very minor, very negligible.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else from the public wish to speak? Okay, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bradley?
Yes.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
Yes.
Commissioner Harper Pedersen?
Yes.
Vice Chair Silverman?
Yes.
Chair Bergman?
Yes. Any discussion?
I mean, more than what we've had, like I said, I do see the public benefit. I just don't see it as being in the spirit of the FCC ruling, which was specifically to increase cell phone coverage and to not have local entities deny that. That's not saying that I think this is a bad thing. I'm just looking for something to trigger some screening. And it just gets increasingly frustrating that we're not able to do that. So that is my comment.
And I'd also like to say, Mr. Yasuda, I mean, if I could just vote what I wanted to vote, in my personal opinion, I would vote against it, but we have to follow the law. And I mean, that's we're bound to follow the law. So I just want to let you know that. Okay.
If you've ever watched any of our meetings,
Very exciting meetings on
and
cell
when it
phone
deals with
towers.
antennas, you'd know that we have a big problem with the way that this is rolled out. So every application, quite frankly.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion.
Any chance that this is in the public right-of-way? No?
And through the chair, did you want to go ahead? Go ahead. Yeah. Staff would like to offer a few additional comments for your consideration.
Right.
So just in terms, I know, discussions occurred about the screening and what can be done. The original poll itself was approved in 2012. And at that time, as an approved project, it had the conditions of, replacing any screening that was removed. So I think one of the problems we're encountering now is that with the addition of equipment, which is not triggering a substantial change for the FCC, there's not a mechanism to require them to screen a project that's already approved and installed when they're adding antennas, at a lower height on a pole that's already been approved. So I think that's, where some of the difficulties lie. Oh, and sorry, and I was going to say, and you're also able to, of course, add conditions on as part of the approval.
Hold on, Andrea. So this poll was approved in 2012, and
Right.
we thought, hey, that's just going to look great with no trees around it? Or were there existing trees at that Cal Walder site that have been removed that would have shielded this?
And if the trees, what kind of trees? Were they pine trees or were they
I'm not-
protected trees?
Right, that
Okay.
don't trigger. I'm
Oh,
not
no.
aware of any tree removals. We can look into that, but no, I'm not aware. There was the original condition on the pole that any landscape screening that was removed or damaged would have to be replaced.
Can somebody look into that to see
Yeah, there's
what
got to be
has
something
happened
that
on
was
this
filed at
site?
the
Because I
time.
just don't see the planning commission going, sweet, pole with no screening, let's just go for it. That just doesn't seem to be in our decision-making process.
Could it be one of the things like we found with Heather where it was a pine tree was removed which didn't require a permit, but was Cal Water's right to do because they were doing their bit and then it caused a visibility problem?
We can look in and see if it was like a Monterey pine that doesn't require a permit. And both the original use permit for the pole and the new one have the condition triggering replacement of landscaping if it's been removed or damaged.
Great.
It's 47 CFR 1.40001, wireless facility modifications. And yeah, that's where, if it were in the right of way, we could deny it, but there's nothing. I don't see anything.
Does the cabinet have to be immediately adjacent to the pole?
Nope.
It has to be fairly close to the pole because of the coax run that goes up the monopole. And the further away you get, the longer the run is, and then you got a problem with your antenna loss at that point. My name is Steve Speasley. I'm an engineer on the project.
Thank you.
I move that the Planning Commission approve the request of PG&E for a conditional use permit to install a dual Omni antenna, a 2-foot diameter microwave dish, concrete pad, outdoor cabinet, wiring and meter panel, and associated trenching for the backhaul to PG&E's San Carlos Service Center on an existing 60-foot monopole at 700 Crestview Drive, based on the findings and for the reasons incorporated in the staff report, with a modification to condition 24 to reflect that the address is 700 Crestview, not 537 Laurel Street, and an additional condition 25 that no permits are issued and no work is done until there is assured compliance with any existing screening conditions that already exist on the property.
I second that.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bradley?
Yay.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
Yes.
Commissioner Harper Pedersen?
Yes.
Vice Chair Silverman?
Yes.
Chair Bergman?
Yes. Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda are reports, correspondence, and general information. Report on recent City Council actions.
Yes, I'd like to report that the City Council has selected the 7-member advisory committee to work with staff and consultants to conduct the single-family home house study. So members that the council had selected for the commission's, you may recall, were 4 homeowners and 3 professionals, one which would be an architect, one a local realtor, and one a local builder or developer. And those 4 homeowners include Christian Vesia, Laura Parmer-Lohan, Adam Cates, and Kate Warmington. The 3 professionals that have been selected, architect Ray Viotti, local realtor Amy Anderson Giuliano, and local builder developer Robert Stafford. So the council has selected those members. We had an orientation this afternoon, and the first meeting is scheduled for May 2nd. All of the advisory committee meetings will be held here at City Hall on the second floor, located in the Enterprise Room. They will be available. Their names and city email addresses will be made available on the project website. So for those who are interested, please visit the Planning Division homepage. There is a link to the single-family home study, and you can find more information about that process.
Thank you.
Please pass on our congratulations.
Planning Commission comments or reports?
I have none.
There was a citywide wayfinding committee meeting this morning. Unfortunately, I was too ill to attend. It was remote meeting, but we meet down here and hear it. I think Al was there, I believe. And there will be another meeting, which may be our last meeting, but it'll be face-to-face here with the consultants from Pasadena, Hunt Consultants, and that will be either the first or second week in May. The exact date isn't set yet.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I did have a couple things I wanted to bring up. One was I was driving around town a few days ago, and I drove down by, I think it's 1671 or 1673, the four-story mixed-use building that we approved recently. It's been put up, and it's actually, people are in there. And I'm really surprised at the paint that's fading, and the building looks like it's 10 years old instead of 10 months old, especially, and behind is even worse. Is there anything that can be done? I don't know if we have any, since it's already an improved project. I mean, obviously it had to have final permit if people are moved in, but I don't know if you've driven by that, but it just, I don't even want, we shouldn't have this, especially on Laurel Street. I'm really sort of disappointed that that's how it turned out, and I'm really going to be suspect if that developer ever comes in front of us again, because is there anything that can be done?
Can you repeat which?
1673 Laurel Street.
Yeah. Have you driven by? Have you seen it?
And yes, staff has recently done kind of like a little site tour of the projects that have been recently approved and are have been constructed or are under construction. And it was noted by staff of the conditions of the building, and we completely agree with you. Okay. The owner has been granted a temporary certificate of occupancy. There's some remaining items that need to be finished. We have communicated our dissatisfaction with the appearance of the building. I mean, all of those things that you mentioned, we completely agree with, and there's a few more I don't want to bring up, but we're currently working with the applicant on those items, and it's a concern of staff, so we're in the process of dealing with it.
Thank you very much. The other thing I wanted, I don't know if we have to make a motion for this or not, but at one point a long time ago, we discussed the potential of the planning commissioners going out and checking on in progress and completed projects. And at the time, there really wasn't much going on, but now we have a lot going on. And I personally, and I don't know how to make this happen, but I personally would like it if we could actually have a meeting where we check these things out and see, because I think it'd be beneficial, and I know we'd have to notice it and figure that out, but I'd like us to consider that, and I don't know if we need to put that on the further agenda for discussion or how we want to handle that, but I'd like to at least have it discussed.
Yes, and as the Planning Commission may recall, part of the work that we are going to be doing with the Opticos design consultant team, we're working on them with them for single-family house size matters, but they've also been hired to help us evaluate our standards in the downtown core, the 600, 700, and 800 blocks of Laurel, and also along Laurel south of Arroyo, so in that kind of transitional area. Some of the projects that are under construction are within the vicinity of those zoning districts, so we can certainly take the planning commission, if this is if maybe informal nods would be fine, but if it's something that the planning commission is interested in, we can look at folding that into the process and look at an opportunity to do that.
That's fine with me.
That'd be great. I'd like that.
Good idea.
Okay. All right, thank you. Correspondence?
None other than what was received on the dais this evening.
Okay. Planning staff comments, reports, and updates of current projects?
The next regularly scheduled meeting with the Planning Commission is set for Monday, May the 1st, and two items that I would like to share with the Commission that will be on the agenda for that evening include 1091 Industrial Way, which is a proposed development plan to construct a new hotel at the corner of Britain and Industrial. So that will be coming forward to the Planning Commission for its consideration in the form of a recommendation to the City Council. The next item on the agenda for that evening is, I don't have the exact address, but it's the 800 block of San Carlos Avenue, where that terminates on the east side, right across from the Landmark Hotel. There is a active application which is proposing some facade upgrades to the existing building. So there's a design review permit requested, as well as a use permit to allow some retail within that existing building. That will be presented to the commission as well. And that's all I have.
Right. Thank you very much. Nothing else. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.